Have you ever seen someone destroy their entire life in just a few seconds? Maybe it was a father who lost his family after one moment of rage. Maybe it was a leader whose career crumbled because they couldn't control their temper. Or maybe it was you, watching yourself lose control, helplessly trapped in the storm of your own anger. Anger doesn't just make you say things you regret, it makes you do things that haunt you forever. It's a silent assassin that destroys careers, breaks relationships, and turns the strongest minds into slaves of their own emotions. And the worst part, the more you try to fight it, the stronger it becomes. But what if I told you that anger is not your enemy? That instead of fighting it, you could use it as a weapon, just like the greatest warriors, emperors, and philosophers in history. The Stoics didn't just control anger, they mastered it. They transformed it into an unstoppable force for strength, wisdom, and self-discipline. And today, you're going to learn exactly how to do the same. This isn't a feel-good self-help lecture. This is a battle-tested, no-nonsense system that will show you how to control anger before it controls you. By the end of this video, you will not only have complete control over your emotions, you will become unshakable. Are you ready to take back your power? Part 1. Identify the enemy. Anger is just an illusion. You've felt the burn of anger before, the rush, the fire, the overwhelming urge to react. But here's the unsettling truth. It was never real, not in the way you think. Anger is not something that happens to you, it's something you create. And if you can create it, you can break it. Now, let's uncover the truth. Anger feels powerful. It surges through your veins, takes control of your thoughts, and convinces you that you must act now. But what if I told you that anger is nothing more than a hallucination? A trick your mind plays on you, making you believe that you're justified, that your rage is necessary, that lashing out is the only option. What if I told you that the entire experience of anger is just a biochemical reaction, one that lasts only 90 seconds unless you keep it alive? At this very moment you might be skeptical. After all, anger feels so real. When you're insulted, when someone betrays you, when things don't go your way, your body reacts instantly. Your heart races, your fists clench, your breath quickens, you feel the fire rising. But let's pause. If anger was a force beyond your control, then why do different people react so differently to the same situation? Why does one person explode while another remains unbothered? The answer is simple. Anger is not what happens to you, it's how you interpret what happens to you. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, understood this when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Stoics knew that anger wasn't some external monster that forced itself upon you. It was a choice, a conditioned response, a reaction that could be controlled, rewired, and ultimately mastered. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Stoics knew centuries ago. When you feel anger, your brain releases a cocktail of stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, designed to prepare you for a physical fight. This was useful for our ancestors when facing real physical threats. But today, your brain doesn't differentiate between a life-threatening danger and a mild insult. It reacts the same way. And this is where the illusion begins. You feel like something is wrong, like you need to respond with force. But the reality is, your brain is just firing off an ancient survival mechanism that no longer serves you. Here's the shocking truth. This chemical surge only lasts 90 seconds. That's it. Dr. Jill Boulter Taylor, a neuroscientist, discovered that the physiological response of anger automatically fades in 90 seconds unless you actively keep it going. So if your rage lasts longer than a minute and a half, it's because you're feeding it, replaying the insult in your mind, justifying your feelings, keeping yourself locked in an emotional storm that could have passed. Now, let's put this in perspective. Imagine you touch a burning stove. The pain is instant, but you immediately pull your hand away because you know the longer you stay, the worse it gets. Anger works the same way. The initial surge is automatic, but whether you keep holding on to it is entirely up to you. And here's where most people fail. They believe that because they feel anger, they must act on it. But this is a lie. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to argue, retaliate, or react. You don't have to let it dictate your next move. You can choose to do nothing. The Stoics mastered this. They knew that controlling anger wasn't about suppression, it was about outlasting it. The more you recognize it as a fleeting illusion, the less power it has over you. And you can start mastering this today with a simple, powerful practice. The 90-second rule. Next time you feel anger rising, pause. Don't react, don't speak, don't move. Just breathe and wait for 90 seconds. Watch what happens. The storm begins to settle, the urgency fades, and in that space, you reclaim control. If you can last those 90 seconds without feeding your anger, you've already won the battle. At first, this will feel unnatural. Your mind will scream at you to do something, to lash out, to engage. But the more you practice, the more you realize that anger was never controlling you. You were always the one controlling it. You just didn't know it yet. Most people spend their entire lives believing they are powerless against their emotions. But you are not most people. You're here because you refuse to be a prisoner of your impulses. You're here because you want to become unshakable, and this is only the beginning. In the next section, we'll expose the hidden dangers of suppressed anger, the kind that poisons you from within without you even realizing it. It's a silent killer that destroys more lives than explosive rage ever could. If you thought uncontrolled anger was dangerous, wait until you see what happens when it goes unexpressed. Are you ready? Let's continue. Part 2. The Silent Killer. How hidden anger destroys you without you even realizing it. When people think of anger, they imagine an explosion, a sudden, uncontrollable outburst that consumes everything in its path. A shattered plate, a slammed door, a heated argument. But what if I told you that the most dangerous kind of anger is the one you never express? The one that simmers beneath the surface, slow and steady like poison in your veins, corroding your mind, your health, your relationships, without you even realizing it. Most people think that because they don't scream, because they don't lash out, they've mastered their emotions. But suppression is not control. It is a ticking time bomb. You may not raise your voice, but you let resentment settle in your heart. You may not retaliate, but you replay the offense over and over in your mind, feeding the anger in silence. You convince yourself you're fine, but your body keeps the score. Suppressed anger doesn't vanish. It transforms. It turns into stress, insomnia, anxiety. It wears you down, making you irritable, detached, emotionally numb. You become colder, more distant from the people you love. The warmth in your relationships fades. You stop laughing as much. You stop feeling as deeply. You stop trusting as easily. And the worst part, you probably don't even notice it happening. Science backs this up. Studies show that people who habitually suppress anger have higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone that weakens the immune system, accelerates aging, and increases the risk of heart disease and strokes. A Harvard study found that those who bottle up their anger are 3 times more likely to suffer from hypertension and heart attacks. Imagine that. Your refusal to confront your emotions could be shaving years off your life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." But when you suppress anger, you do exactly that. You allow the words, the actions of others to live rent-free in your mind, shaping your behavior in ways you don't even recognize. You hold on to grudges, and over time, you become the very thing you once despised. So, how do you break free? How do you stop anger from rotting you from the inside out? The Stoics had a method, one that doesn't involve repression nor uncontrolled release, but rather the deliberate, conscious processing of emotion before it turns into poison. Tonight, before you sleep, take a piece of paper and write down one thing that made you angry today. Be honest. No one will read it but you. Then ask yourself one question. Will this matter a year from now? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, ask yourself what you can do about it right now. If there's an action you can take, take it. If not, release it. This simple act will rewire your brain over time. Instead of carrying unspoken resentments, you'll train yourself to process, to understand, and to let go. You will not suppress your anger. You will transcend it. Most people believe that mastering anger means never feeling it, but the truth is, real mastery is feeling it fully, without being controlled by it. It is about recognizing that anger, like fire, can be destructive when left unchecked, but when harnessed, it can illuminate, it can forge, it can refine. And here's the real secret. When you stop letting hidden anger control you, you stop carrying unnecessary burdens. Your relationships improve, your mind clears, your body heals. You feel lighter, sharper, stronger. You begin to see things differently, not as personal attacks, but as fleeting moments in a much larger picture. You gain the ultimate power, the power to choose peace when the world expects war. In the next section, we take this even further, because if you think anger is the only emotion you need to master, you're mistaken. There's another, even more insidious force that destroys more lives than rage ever could. You don't just need to control your anger, you need to master every emotion that controls you. Let's continue. Part 3. The Stoic 3-step system to mastering anger. Anger is fast. It hits like a storm, sudden, overwhelming, and consuming. Your heart pounds, your vision narrows, your fists clench. In that moment, it feels impossible to stop. But here's what the Stoics knew. Anger is not an unstoppable force. It is a process, a sequence of reactions in your mind and body. And if you can interrupt that sequence, you can control it, not by suppressing it, not by pretending it doesn't exist, but by redirecting it into something powerful. Most people think of anger as an enemy, but what if anger wasn't something to fight? What if it was something to outsmart? The Stoics developed a method, one so effective that it was used by warriors, rulers, and philosophers alike. A method that allowed them to remain calm under pressure, unmoved by insults, unshaken by life's chaos. And this method is built on 3 simple steps. The first step is to stop, to create space between the trigger and your reaction. The mistake most people make is thinking that they have no choice when anger takes over. They believe that their response is automatic, inevitable, but this is a lie. Between the moment something angers you and the moment you react, there is a gap. And in that gap, you have power. The problem is, most people never even see it. They jump straight from stimulus to response, from offense to retaliation, from feeling to action, without pausing to question if that action is necessary, wise, or even beneficial. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher, understood this better than anyone. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His secret? He refused to let external events dictate his internal state. And the way he did this was by mastering the pause. The next time you feel anger rising, stop. Do nothing. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and count to 3. This tiny act disrupts the automatic cycle of anger. It forces your brain out of its reactive state and gives you a moment to regain control. And in that moment, you reclaim your power. Once you have created space between the trigger and your response, the next step is to evaluate. Ask yourself whether this is truly worth your energy. When something provokes you, it's easy to believe that it matters, that you have to respond, that your outrage is justified. But here's the hard truth. Most things are not worth your anger. Think of the last 5 things that made you furious. The rude comment, the person who cut you off in traffic, the disagreement at work, the delayed response to your message. Now ask yourself, do these things still matter today? What about last week, last month? The answer, in almost every case, is no. Because the reality is, anger is a terrible investment. It costs your peace, your energy, your focus, and it rarely gives you anything in return. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, warned against this when he said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Why? Because time reveals the truth. What feels urgent in the moment often seems insignificant with distance. If you can pause and ask, "Will this matter in a year?" you will see how often the answer is no. And when it is no, you will realize there is nothing to be angry about. But what about the times when anger is justified, when something truly does matter? That's where the third step comes in. Instead of reacting destructively, you must redirect your anger into something powerful. Anger is energy, raw, untamed, explosive, and like fire, it can destroy or it can forge. The Stoics did not believe in suppressing emotions. They believed in harnessing them, turning them into tools for strength. Instead of lashing out in frustration, use that energy to improve. Instead of arguing in rage, use that fire to fuel discipline, resilience, mastery. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest Stoic teachers, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This is the essence of redirection. Anger itself is not the problem. It is what you do with it that determines whether it destroys or builds. So here's how you put this into practice. The next time you feel anger, breathe deeply and stop. Create space. In that space, ask yourself, will this matter in a year? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, use it. Not by reacting in anger, but by channeling that energy into something constructive. If someone insults you, don't waste time arguing. Use that energy to become so strong that their words no longer matter. If you feel wronged, don't stew in resentment. Use that fire to make yourself better, sharper, stronger. The greatest revenge is excellence. Most people let anger control them, but you are not most people. You are here to master it, to turn it into something useful, something that serves you rather than enslaves you. In the next section, we take this even further. Because once you know how to control anger, the next challenge is learning how to stay completely unshaken no matter what life throws at you. If you think self-control is power, wait until you learn about the Stoic secret to absolute emotional invincibility. Let's continue. Part 4. The ultimate power of calm. The key to unbreakable victory. Mastering anger is powerful, but it's not the highest level of control. True power is not just about managing outbursts, it's about being untouchable, completely unfazed, unshaken, and immune to the chaos around you. Because the real enemy isn't just anger, it's the loss of control that comes with it. The difference between those who dominate life and those who are dominated by it is simple. The most successful people don't just control their reactions, they train themselves to be so calm, so composed, that they rarely need to react at all. This is the essence of Stoicism. Not suppressing emotions, not ignoring problems, but achieving a level of inner stillness where nothing external can disturb your peace. Some of the greatest minds and most accomplished individuals in history have relied on this principle, not because they were born different, but because they trained themselves to remain calm when others lost control. Marcus Aurelius, the last of the 5 good emperors of Rome, ruled during one of the most turbulent times in Roman history. Wars, plagues, betrayal. Every day was filled with threats that could have shattered a weaker man. But he refused to be ruled by circumstances. He understood that while he couldn't control the world, he could always control himself. He trained his mind to see every challenge as an opportunity to practice composure. In his meditations, he wrote, "If you are disturbed by something external, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment about it, and you have the power to change that judgment." Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history, built his fortune not by making the smartest investments, but by staying calm when others panicked. While markets crashed and investors made emotional decisions, Buffett remained unmoved, calculating and precise. His entire philosophy is built on not letting emotions dictate actions. When asked about his secret to success, he said, "The most important quality for an investor is temperament, not intellect. Because in moments of crisis, it's not the most intelligent person who wins, it's the one who keeps their emotions under control." Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, was famous for his mental discipline and unshakable focus. Opponents would trash talk, fans would scream, pressure would mount, but Kobe remained completely locked in. He never allowed emotions to cloud his game. While others reacted to distractions, he used them to sharpen his focus. His mindset was simple. I don't react to pressure, I create it. He understood that staying calm wasn't just about avoiding anger, it was about commanding the moment. So how do you develop this kind of control? How do you reach the point where nothing shakes you, nothing rattles you, nothing forces you to react? The Stoics had a technique, one that is simple yet life-changing. The 10-second rule. The next time someone insults you, challenges you, provokes you, do nothing for 10 seconds. No reaction, no words, no movement. Just sit with the feeling. Let the impulse rise. Let it peak. Let it pass. Because here's the truth. If you can hold your composure for 10 seconds, you can hold it forever. Most people react instantly, without thinking, without reflecting, without control. But if you can delay your response, you take back your power. Those 10 seconds give you distance from the emotion, allowing logic and wisdom to take over. It's the difference between reacting like an amateur and responding like a master. At first, it will feel impossible. Your mind will scream at you to say something, do something, react immediately. But each time you pause, you weaken that impulse. Each time you wait, you reinforce control. And over time, something incredible happens. You stop being controlled altogether. Most people live their lives being constantly pulled by external events, reacting to everything that happens to them. But you are here to master something greater. You are here to develop a mind so strong, so composed, that nothing external can break it. In the next section, we take this even further. Because staying calm in the face of anger is one thing, but what happens when life truly tests you? What happens when adversity strikes, when everything falls apart, when the world around you is in chaos? The next level of Stoicism isn't just about being calm, it's about turning every challenge into an advantage. Are you ready to unlock the ultimate level of resilience? Part 5. The shocking story. How a single moment of anger destroyed everything. In 2005, a single moment of uncontrolled rage ended the career of one of the most powerful CEOs in the world. His name was Mike Jeffries, the man who built Abercrombie and Fitch into a billion-dollar fashion empire. Under his leadership, A&F became a cultural phenomenon, dictating what was cool in American fashion. But his downfall didn't come from bad business decisions or market shifts. It came from something much more personal, his inability to control his anger. Jeffries was known for his obsessive control over A&F's brand image. He was aggressive, demanding, and relentless in his pursuit of perfection. But beneath this drive was an ego that couldn't tolerate criticism. In a high-stakes board meeting, tensions ran high as company executives began questioning his leadership. Sales were declining, customers were complaining, and the brand was losing relevance. When one executive directly challenged his strategy, Jeffries snapped. He lashed out, belittled his colleagues, and refused to acknowledge any flaws in his approach. His outburst created a rift in the company. Investors lost faith in his leadership. Employees turned against him. His once loyal board members began looking for ways to remove him. By 2013, Jeffries had gone from one of the most influential figures in fashion to an outcast in his own empire. He was forced to resign, not because he was incompetent, but because he allowed his anger and pride to dictate his actions. The company he built, the brand he shaped, continued without him. He became irrelevant, forgotten. His inability to manage his emotions cost him everything. If he could go back, what should he have done differently? The answer is simple, but not easy. He should have practiced detachment, the core principle of Stoicism. When confronted with criticism, he should have paused, observed his emotions, and asked himself, is my reaction serving my long-term goals, or just my ego? The Stoics believed that the greatest power lies in controlling one's response to external events, not trying to control those events themselves. Epictetus, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Jeffries was so caught up in defending his authority that he failed to see the bigger picture. He viewed the challenge as an attack, not as an opportunity to adapt. But what if, instead of reacting emotionally, he had listened? What if he had embraced the discomfort of criticism instead of fighting it? If you were in his position, what would you do? Would you let your emotions take over? Would you burn bridges in a moment of anger? Or would you take a step back, control your impulse and respond with strategy instead of emotion? The Stoic way would be to pause, reflect, and ask, will my reaction help or hurt my ultimate goal? The moment you ask this question, you break free from emotional slavery. You realize that you don't need to win the argument. You need to win in life. The lesson here is clear. You don't lose because of your circumstances. You lose because you let emotions control you instead of mastering them. In the next section, we will take this even further. Because avoiding destructive anger is one thing, but what if you could actually turn anger into power? Instead of letting it destroy you, what if you could use it as fuel to become even stronger, more disciplined, more unshakable? That's what's next, the final evolution, not just controlling anger but mastering it. Do you want to explore, conquer, and take on the challenge with me? Part 6. The 7-Day Stoic Challenge. Train yourself to master anger. Mastering anger isn't about simply understanding Stoic principles. It's about putting them to the test, facing real challenges, and proving to yourself that you are in control, not your emotions. Anyone can read about self-discipline, but only a few truly live it. This challenge is for those few. For the next 7 days, you will push yourself to a new level of control, one that most people never reach. Each day will demand more from you, forcing you to break old patterns and rewire the way you respond to anger. It will not be easy. Your emotions will fight back, tempting you to react, to justify your frustration, to surrender to the moment. But if you commit, if you fully engage, you will come out on the other side with something far greater than temporary relief. You will emerge unshakable. On the first day, the challenge begins with a shift in perception. Most people react to anger because they feel personally attacked. But a Stoic knows that nothing is truly personal. Imagine stepping outside of yourself for a moment. Watch your anger as if it were happening to someone else. See it from above, like a scene unfolding in a play. If this were a story, what would a wise character do? Would they lash out? Or would they recognize that anger is just another fleeting emotion, powerless unless fed? Marcus Aurelius trained himself in this way, constantly reminding himself that the mind shapes reality. Everything is perception, and perception can be changed. As you move into the second day, the battle against anger intensifies. Your instincts will tell you to act immediately, to react in the heat of the moment. But what if you didn't? Neuroscience has confirmed what the Stoics knew centuries ago. Anger is a biochemical reaction, a surge of chemicals lasting no more than 90 seconds. That's it. After that, the only thing keeping it alive is your own mind. So today, when you feel anger rising, do nothing. Pause for 90 seconds, let it swell, let it fade, and watch as the fire dies out on its own. The more you practice this, the more you will realize that you never needed to react in the first place. By the third day, you will challenge the illusion of urgency. So much of what makes us angry feels critical in the moment, but meaningless in hindsight. Instead of reacting blindly, take a step back and ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? If not, why waste a single moment of your energy on it now? The Stoics trained themselves to see beyond temporary emotions, to view things from a higher plane. When you begin to do the same, you will notice that most conflicts shrink in importance, dissolving before they even have the chance to consume you. On the fourth day, you will refine your control even further. When confronted, when provoked, when anger calls for a reaction, delay. Count to 10. Force yourself to sit in the discomfort of inaction. This is the space where mastery is built. The untrained mind reacts instantly. The disciplined mind waits, thinks, chooses. The most powerful people in history were not the loudest in the room. They were the ones who could remain still while others lost control. As you reach the 5th day, it is time to reframe anger entirely. Most people see anger as something negative, something to be eliminated. The Stoic sees it as energy, raw, untamed, and available to be redirected. If someone insults you, take that energy and use it to improve. If you feel slighted, use that fire to build something that makes your emotions irrelevant. Seneca once wrote that a blazing fire makes brightness out of everything thrown into it. Your anger is fuel. Use it wisely. The 6th day is the hardest. Today you will test your ultimate level of restraint. No matter what happens, you will not react. Not to insults, not to disrespect, not to frustration. You will embody absolute stillness. If you can remain calm in the face of provocation, you will have attained something rare, control over yourself. Because the truth is, most people live at the mercy of external events, letting the world dictate their emotions. But not you, not anymore. By the final day, something inside you will have shifted. You will notice your impulses weakening, your awareness strengthening. Anger will no longer feel as urgent, as necessary, as powerful as it once did. You will reflect on how many times anger tried to control you, and how many times you controlled it instead. And as you sit with this realization, as you write about your journey, one truth will become clear. You are no longer the same person who started this challenge. But this is not the end. It is only the beginning. Most people will go through life ruled by their emotions, slaves to their impulses, controlled by everything except themselves. But you have stepped into something greater. You have gained the ability to choose, to decide how you react, how you live, how you face the world. And that, more than anything, is the foundation of true strength. The only question is, will you continue? Anger has ruled over many lives, shattered relationships, and led to decisions filled with regret. But today, you stand at a turning point. You now understand that anger is not an unstoppable force. It is merely an illusion, a habit of the mind, a choice. And the greatest wisdom of the Stoics is this: you always have the power to choose differently. You can continue letting anger dictate your actions, pulling you into battles that don't serve you, draining your energy on things that won't matter in 5 years. Or, starting today, you can reclaim control. You can step into the mindset of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, those who faced chaos, provocation, and injustice yet remained unmoved. You can begin the real work of mastering not just anger, but yourself. And this is where the challenge begins. Have you ever made a terrible decision because of anger? What happened? Share your experience in the comments. Let's build a space where we learn from each other, where wisdom is passed down, just as the Stoics did. And if you're ready for a real transformation, take the 7-day Stoic challenge. Commit to 1 week of training your mind to resist anger, to remain calm under pressure, to become the person others look to for strength. Are you in? Let me know below. If you found this valuable, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because this is just the beginning. If anger is a battle, then so are fear, anxiety, and sadness. And in the next video, I'll reveal exactly how Stoics conquer them all. You don't just want to control anger. You want to master every emotion that controls you. Remember this: he who angers you controls you, but only if you let them. What will you choose today?